Hello, good evening. Actually, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. If you are watching us, please share in the chat so we can also interact with you. And we are starting our new a session today. I'm very excited. Today it's a unusual day to have a session because we moved it here for from Tuesday to Thursday, and just because we have an incredible guest today to bring to you. So all therefore makes sense when I call you the guest, our guest today, and we're going to discuss a very interesting topic. I believe the one of the most important when we are in a company, especially those companies that are growing and or you are growing in your career. It is how to scale an engineering organization, teams or organizations. So I do myself have challenges on this topic, so I have lots of things to ask. But first, let me just let our co-host also been talking here. So let me say hello to Chila. Hey, Chila, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Hugo. Hello, Luis, and hello everyone who is joining this today's session. So I'm also very excited about this conversation and looking forward to it. What Thiago will share with us, how to scale an organization. So looking forward to it.
Perfect. Yes. And you, Luis, how are you, man?
Hello, Hugo. Hello, Chila. I'm very excited also because I had the opportunity to talk with Thiago, and he's a guy that has lots of experience to share with us, and he has a unique vision of this um, tech field that we are here now. We are like professionals in technology, not only Java, not only development. And if you can see the field as a whole, you can have other perspectives. And I think our guest today, Thiago, has this unique perspective, this other kinds of vision about the field. So I'm really excited.
So that's great, man. So I think let me just give a quick introduction of what who is which Thiago we are talking about, right? I think that our guest today is Thiago Ghisi. He is director of engineering at the new bank nowadays. It's a huge fintech in the world, and also he worked already at Apple. It's an ex Apple and ex ThoughtWorks guy. So there's 20 years of experience to share with us. So I'm very excited to bring a warm welcome to Thiago Ghisi. Hello, Thiago. How are you?
Hello, folks. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so humbled to be having this like round table discussion with you. And as I was saying before we start, it is a pleasure to have so many different perspectives. And I always appreciate to bounce ideas and to share my perspective. But remember that my perspective is only one, and we have many here, many different experience. So yeah, very excited to be talking about this topic. I recently gave a talk on QCon London on this, and it's been a journey, right? It's been a long time journey for me, especially the last 8 years or so on the engineering management path. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
That's great, man. So thanks a lot on our side to accepting this the invite and yeah, to bring your experience here. Well, before before starting anything, I think it would be great to actually start with a very a very important question, probably that will already address the scaling challenges, right? So, what do you think it is the three biggest challenges when we are talking about scaling the engineering team, and what do you feel it is the biggest one for, especially because we're talking about when we talk about engineering, there are lots of uh, different fields that uses technology to an engineering team to different purposes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm very curious about what for you. What was the biggest challenge you had um, on the journey?
Yes. So I think there were many challenges, but if I had to pick one or two, I think the answer is like it depends a lot on the context, on like at what point of your like career experience you are, right? But I think like the first challenge that I had to scale like myself beyond, let's say, a direct squad or direct team was like to like do delegation and to form other leaders under me, right? I think it's easier for you to be like trying to scale yourself vertically, right? Almost in a way that oh, if you work more hours, or if you just like, oh, you keep being the engineering manager for two, three projects at the same time, it's easy to think that that's gonna scale, but I think is not sustainable, right? So I think like, and then like once you start to manage more than one scope and have more than one project going at the same time, I think the biggest challenge is like, okay, who can you delegate things to? How do you influence without being on the day to day, right? How can you separate doing the work versus like helping with the work, right? Like, and I think a lot about this is about staffing, is about setting the right rituals, is about like having the chance to like to hire the right people, right? I think there's a lot of challenge there, and I think like also to let go some control, to be okay with like seeing people fail in some way or another, and be there to help and to see how it goes, right? Because it's very very hard for you to scale and like and for everything to go right at the very beginning, right? So I think that's like the very first thing, but I think like then there are other things is like how do you set processes that are gonna scale for more than one group for different realities of projects, right? Like how do you influence the architecture, how do you like deal with stakeholders, how like I think all those things come as you have more and more responsibilities under your org, right? But I think the first one for many people is delegation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Delegation, yeah. I totally, I thought I had the same challenge here my day to day. I'm a technical manager, and I I am still on the technical path. I do still work on and help on technical decisions, and I love to be hands-on guy. But yeah, you have to start creating this an effective way to delegate, right? Because you
Mhm.
otherwise you tend to do, oh, I can do it myself, and then you got occupied, and then you delegate less, and then yes,
Yes,
I
and
totally
I think the other
understand
thing
this.
is that yeah, I think like the other thing is like I think delegation is a process, right? Like it takes time, so you have to start small and to like it's almost mentoring, right? Like you cannot mentor someone in one session. It takes time, so it's like and delegation is a process that you have to go over like months, right? You have to start by making sure that the person has the same goals and is aligned with their career. Then you have to make sure that they have the right context, and then you want to try it out in like small tasks first, see how it goes, right? And then you start to develop your own confidence on that person, start to feel better and better about delegating bigger and bigger things, and even things that you don't know yourself how you would do it, right? You let that person figure out. And I think that also applies to staff engineers, or like a lot of times on the IC track, the the way to scale is you need to find other people that are going to be able to do what you're doing today in more contexts, right? Like, and you have to try to leverage yourself to do more and more ambitious things that are at higher levels, or trying to do more like bigger things that you cannot do it all. I think like that's the hardest thing, right? And at the beginning of of my career, at least, I felt that I could, right, and just like work more hours and do more of the same. And but at some point, the bill is gonna show up on the table, right? And you cannot sacrifice like his sleep and many like family time for very little time.
Hey, Thiago, I have a question I think is related with some things that you already told us. Because you recently gave a talk at QCon London, right? About the lessons that you've learned from growing your team from, I think, 30 from over 100 engineers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did your leadership style change it as your responsibility grew? How was that?
Yes, I would say definitely. I think like it has to change, but I think like is if I had like if I had to compare myself when I had a org of 30 engineers and now when I have a org of like 100, I would say that I would say like my leadership style is still the same, kind of like my essence or my the way that I talk, the way that I try to do things is still the same. I don't think I have changed my personality, let's say, right? But when you say like, oh, my engineering, like I think the kind of things that I'm focusing on are completely different. Like for example, when I had, let's say, when I had a small org, I was still on the day to day. I was still kind of like trying to see how every single project was going, joining stand-ups and like solving things. And like the more responsibility you have to be more like, for example, like right now one of my core jobs is like to build the leadership team under me, right, to make sure that I have the right leaders that are able to represent me in a lot of contexts, or that have the right information. Is about sharing the company vision, where we're going, why we're going there. Is to helping to solve conflicts with other like all parts of the organization. Is like it's not that I don't care about what's going on the day to day on the project or on the code base. Like it's just that it's hard for me to be at the same level of detail that I was, right? So I think like is more about the vision and building the leadership team, right? Developing talents to keep growing than being the one that's doing it all, right? I think like early in like it is important for you to be setting the right foundations in your org as your org starts to grow, because like if you have an org of like 100 people without any leadership team, without any, let's say, execution, like solid operational cadence. And operational cadence here might be like from like meetings to like knowledge sharing to like review of operational problems, right? Like if you don't have those bases well set, it's almost you're gonna have to go like 3 levels down. But if you have like at least the execution is good, how you break down projects is good, and you have leadership that is there, right? I think everything becomes easier and easier. And on my talk at QCon London, I talk about almost a framework on how I think if I had to go back and do it again, I would go in that order, right? Like first establish the operational cadence and manage like performance, like people performance. Like I think like is more important as your org is small for you to manage the extremes, right? To manage people that are very high performers and people that are not doing well, than the people that are kind of like doing okay. I think like you can spend more time on the extremes, right? And like setting like the right operational cadence. And what I when I say operational cadence here is I'm saying from like the way you break down projects, the way that you give status updates, the way you share knowledge across, the way you handle like problems in production, the way you fix bugs, right? The way that mentorship happens. And then like you go to build your leadership team, you go into kind of like trying to have a vision of how does it look like in a year or two for this particular org, what you're going to be doing, like how can we start to move there, right? And then to get to influence more like other areas of the organization and all those things.
But you also have to represent the company's vision. But I think you personally you also have to have your own vision where you want to lead your people. So how does it look like? Or I would like
Yes.
to.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like you need to start to cultivate a vision in many aspects. I think like is like what is the structure that you want to have in your org, like what is the ideal staffing, right? But also like how we're going to be providing value to the organization, how what you're doing is aligned with whatever the organization, the business trying to go, right? Like I think you need to understand the outside context, right? And kind of like to be able to influence like the direction you go, because like if you're not aligned with like what the company needs, it's gonna be very hard to justify any additional, let's say, engineers coming to your group. And if you're not doing well, if you're not delivering your projects, if you're not performing well as an organization, right? Everything else is gonna be harder, right? So I think like you need on the talk I mentioned about like you need to understand almost outside in and act inside out, right? Like you need to like look at like the surroundings, what are the problems, like where the company wants to be in a year and what's preventing us from get there, and then look inside the org like, okay, what can we do to help there, right? Like, and what projects, what OKRs or what things, right? So I think like when you ask about the vision is more about bringing it all together in a way that can like can make some sense. And like a lot of times the work of creating a vision is to finding the patterns, like is like more you try to put all the problems you're having on the table and then you clusterize them and then you look what other companies or what other engineering organizations that like had these problems but now are doing great, what they're doing, right? And how did they got there? And then okay, how can I adapt this to my own work, right? So I think that there is a lot of things like how can I adapt this to my own culture, to my own organizational goals, right? So I think like there is a lot of work into building that long-term view. And when I say long-term view, I'm not saying about like like an inspirational view. It's like something very concrete, like something very tangible and something that is not necessarily you're talking about this, you're like putting on the walls, or but you're kind of like you're like walking on that direction, like almost in a subtle way, right? And then you make that more explicit. You and then as things become more clear, as you talk to more people, as like things start to align, you then materialize that in a document. You then like have OKRs or KPIs that go in that direction. Then you try to change projects to go there. So that there's many things you can do to like influence the vision or the direction.
Mhm. And
Yeah, go ahead, Chila.
how do you communicate all those changes, what you would like to implement in your team or in your responsibility? Because I think that all those changes that you should do it in some kind of a transparent way, that people understand what you are doing, for what reason, why you are doing this. So bringing all those people together, and they need to understand it. How do you manage to bring the transparency? Because if you are not transparent enough, then that can generate some kind of not understanding, mistrust, or so negative
Yes.
feeling. So
Yeah.
What can you do?
I think like at least the thing that has worked for me is to start to share things in small doses, almost like it is like if you want to change direction, like first like talk to your leadership team about this, talk like it is a gradual process, right? And then the more confidence you get that that's the direction that people seem to be aligned with that, then you start to bring more people in. And but I think like sometimes you cannot be super explicit about the direction, like because it's not very clear or it's not 100% decided yet that they're going to go in that direction. So what I like to do is like to share informally sometimes, like to start to bring people the attention on the topic, like and like there are so many ways to do that, right? Like you can share an article on a new like architecture style or on a new like technology you want to use, and then you can start to do POCs, and then you can start to have a small discussion with a small, more senior group of engineers about this. And then it's like, but like at the end, it should not be a surprise or should not be overnight, right? Is a thing that, oh, folks, we have been talking about this. You start to get feedback. You start like to talking one-on-ones. It's like, folks, we're thinking about this going this direction. You start to try to get some feedback in an informal way. It's like, how would you feel about us going this direction? Like, is there anything that you feel would be a risk here? Is there anything that would impact the morale of the team, right? So it is a process of cultivating that in a way that like is not going to look like a surprise, but is more like, okay, we're already working on that direction, that's very clear and people are already aligned in some way or another, and you already addressed the risks or the feedback or the problems on the way, right? It's almost as you're like developing this strategy, as you're sharing, right? You already people already gave you feedback and you already iterated. And I think the best strategy is when people feel that they were part of the strategy, that whatever feedback they share was incorporated and is not like the leader's strategy, but is the group strategy, and everybody feels part of that, right? So if you can like influence in that way, I think everything's going to be easier. Because if you try to do like a top down mandate on something, like people are going to have resistance, like they're not going to feel that they're part of that, right? It is like the process that works well is like gradual and make sure that people are onboarded and feel part, and also that you are taking their feedback seriously, and you're like you're not static. You're not like, oh, we're going to do this way and we're going to keep this way forever, but you're always like changing direction and like iterating, right? I think when people see that whatever they brought up as a feedback on like whatever project or new thing you're doing was taking consideration, they see their contribution there. I think the plan is going to be more robust and people are going to be more and more like bought in the plan.
Amazing. I'm enjoying a lot all the insights. I just want to say hello to Rodolfo Mendes and Gilda. They said quick hello here. And if you're watching us and you have questions regarding to how you have challenges, questions regarding to scaling your engineering team, please place here on the chat so we can bring here to Thiago and put it in the table. And Thiago, I think I was too excited and I just jumped into the first to the question, and I forget to ask you to share a bit about your background. Maybe how have you started your journey, and how have you actually get to where you are?
That's great.
I think that would be very interesting to hear a bit about.
Yes. So as I said, it's been a long journey, like pretty much like 20 years now. I started back in Brazil, as many of you are from Brazil as well. Like I started as IT tech support, fixing computers, changing hard drives, and like formatting Windows and Windows XP, Windows 98, right? All those things. And then um, I think I got very lucky that I did what's called the technical high school in Senai. I don't know if you folks know. And I
Yeah.
learned to program, like to code when I was maybe 14. So when I got to college to computer science, I kind of already knew the basics of Java, the basics. It was still very, very early days, 2004, 2005, for many things, right? But then I got an internship, and then like I think then my career took off because I think like one of the things that I was very lucky to be able to do was I was working full time, like on the third semester or so. I was already working full time and doing college in the evenings, right? In Brazil, it's possible to do like college like in the evenings and weekends sometimes, right? So I almost like when I left college, I was already close to the senior level because I already had like 4 or 5 years of experience, right? And then
Whoa.
when I graduated, I was already like already had like a lot of time, like a lot of real life experience in projects, in like organizations. I had already seen like what good management looked like, what good technical leadership looks like, right? And like I was able to connect what I was doing in college with what I was seeing on the day to day. But I think like the biggest leap in my career happened, I believe, was 2012 and 2013 when I joined ThoughtWorks in Brazil. ThoughtWorks is a famous consultants, and it was like very early days of agile and all those things. And I got to work on a project that was international. Let's say they had a lot of people in the US, a lot of people in India, right? And I ended up coming to New York City for a project to help to do a release of like a project that we were working on, and then ended up interviewing and then moving to New York City in 2014. So I've been here for 11 years. So like it's almost half of my career has been in Brazil, and the other half in the US. And then I worked 3 years on a startup and helped to build an engineering team there, help like learn the basics of AWS on the early days of AWS, migrating from Linux to AWS, and got very deep into infrastructure, DevOps, and also help on the sales side of the product, API integrations with partners, all those things. And then 2016, I joined American Express as a senior engineer, and then 2 months after, my engineering manager at the time left, and I ended up taking the challenge of like assuming the engineering management of a very critical project that at the time was very stressful, but I was able to handle that, and I think that put me in a very good position for growth. And then stay at American Express on the mobile engineering team at American Express here in New York City, pretty much like helping to shape the new app that we're building. And then join Apple after like 5 years. I work on Apple Pay, and then for the last 3 years, I have been at Nubank leading the mobile platform and helping to grow that org, and like especially as Nubank scale, as the way it scale, right, in Brazil and Latin America in general. So that's being so it's like when I say I have an org of 100 engineers now, it was like a 20-year journey, right? And I had to kind of like reinvent myself many times. And every time you change companies, is a new context, is a new like new operational model, is a new like architecture, right? So I think like yeah, I think like, and I work with all different kinds of different technologies. I work with Java for the first maybe 7 years or so in college, and then on my first job. Then I work a lot with Ruby on Rails and Android. Then I work with Python, AWS, and again Android, iOS. Then I work a lot with Java again, and then Kotlin, and then like Swift, right? and then back to Java, and now I'm in the Clojure, Flutter, Dart. So I, of course, in the last 8 years, I have not been as deep as I would like to be technically, but I see the trend. And it's funny that we have a lot of new things that are showing up now. There's like, oh, this seems like idea we did in Java in 2005, right? They're just giving a new name, and it's like, oh yeah, this is like. So it's like the more time you have, the more patterns you see, the more you're like, okay, this is like this in the language that I did. They're just giving a new name now.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
that's yeah. Go ahead, Luis.
I would like to take this opportunity because since Thiago mentioned his journey as a technician and then developer and now a leader, uh, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to engineers who want to move from technical roles to leadership roles?
That's a great. I think like the main thing that I always say is ownership and being the glue, right? I think that's being a pattern in my career, and I think like being the glue is like being the person that's doing the job that is in nobody's job description, right? Like, oh, who is responsible for scheduling meetings? Who is responsible for organizing a happy hour? Who is responsible for talking to the client, right? Like, who is responsible to like so many things that usually is like uh, I'm an engineer. I should only code and do those things. I don't really want to interview people. I don't really want to onboard, right? There are things that kind of like are sitting in the borderline. Is this my job or not? And a lot of people are very resistant to do those things. So I think like the first thing is like jump on those opportunities to do glue work, because leadership job at the end of the day is being able to do all those things that are sitting on the corners, right? Not to let the ball drop, right? And the other thing is ownership, right? When I mean ownership is like it's like you take it seriously that the project you're trying to deliver is like it has to get to the other end, like it's like, and it's not about like personal sacrifice or anything, but it's about being pragmatic, about like thinking like the owner, right? And like, okay, this project has a reason and we're going to try to do the best to move to the other side. I see a lot of people, and I think that's the biggest gap between IC and leader, that are sitting waiting, right? They're kind of like, okay, give me the task. What should I do? Like, if you don't give me direction, I'm just gonna wait, right? Like, I think like being the like proactive person that's trying to do whatever, like whatever is needed, and is someone that's not waiting for instructions, right? I think like if you do those two things, I think like one, you're gonna learn a lot of things, like how to run a meeting, how to talk to the customer, right? Like how to interact with other areas, right? And if you act like an owner and you're almost like you want to be the voice of it's not that you want to be putting pressure on the team or but you want to be the person that's trying to move things forward, right? Because I think at the end of the day, it's like the leader's job is to cultivate that tension. Like there's always going to be people that want to go slower. There always going to be people that want more quality, and it's like your job is to cultivate all those things and to be able to like to make trade-offs, right? So I think like those things are very critical, and I think like this is what differentiates like people that are able to keep growing their career from people that usually get stuck, right? But I mean, and when I say this is like not saying that that's the only way to grow, but I see this is almost is a way to open the door, right? And then if people see you doing this, people are going to trust you, and you're going to be more prepared when the opportunity comes to take that opportunity. Because like, for example, in my case, like I said that when I was at American Express, I was presented this opportunity to take over the job of my manager that had just left as engineer manager, right? And like but I was already acting like an engineering manager in so many ways because I was already facilitating meetings, already doing things that people would look at me as like, why you as a senior engineer is facilitating a meeting with the director and VPs, and like, because I didn't know, right? I didn't know any better. It's like, oh, if there is an opportunity, I'm gonna take that, right? Of course, you have to be careful. It's like there are things that are not sustainable, right? But I think you have to, yeah, you have to try those things. So if there is, and those are very practical things, that there are opportunities everywhere, right? You can do things better, smarter, faster. You can be the one that's like is putting a little bit of pressure, trying to move things a little faster than usual, right? Being a little bit more pragmatic. And I think a lot of like one thing that a lot of people forget is like in most organizations, you get more credits for doing a good enough job, like consistently, than doing a amazing job or like a perfect thing once a year, right? And a lot of people, the quality excuse, right? Oh, I'm gonna use the, I really need this is gonna be much better. Like, is the thing that actually prevents people from moving, because a lot of times you don't need the best architecture. And a lot of times there are a lot of things that you believe you're gonna need in like in theory, but when you get to production is a different story, right? So it's like just iterate on what you have on real feedback. So I think that's the thing I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm laughing because sometimes not even the quality that you don't need, probably the whole product you don't need, and you discover only when you release it. So yeah, it's it's good to fail
Yeah,
fast if, it does,
yes.
right?
I'm a big fan of the what they say the walking skeleton idea, right? Like I mean, like you want to
Oh,
iterate on the project, like you want to do the walking skeleton first. You want to see things working end to end, even if like very bare bones. Then you want to put the
I never
muscle,
heard.
and then you want to put the skin. I think you can iterate on the fly, right? I think like a lot of people think about delivering software as like you're gonna deliver the complete project at once, and that's the big bang problem, right? That's the big bang releases. That's where you have a lot of problems.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. We have a question here from the chat. Rodolfo mentions. I think it's really very close to what Luis already mentioned it here.
Mhm.
Hi Thiago, my question is: as a senior engineer, how do we scale our work to make a broader impact? What should be the first steps? How do we transition from an individual mindset to a leader mindset? I think maybe here, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think like the the broader impact part, right? I think like this is something that like as you like if you want to stay on the IC track, right? If you want to go from senior to lead to staff to senior staff, I think like is not necessarily coding more or like or doing more things, but is doing things that have let's say a larger blast radius of impact, right? Like it's like, are you working on the problems that are gonna be impacting the organization, or are you working on a problem that's only gonna impact one small service, one small area of the product, right? Like is working on the what's called the non-functional requirements or the cross-cutting requirements, right? Is so like when I think about like increasing or broadening the impact, I'm usually thinking about like platforms, libraries, like architecture concerns or things that can be reused or are gonna pretty much like take the business to a different level. Like, oh, things that are gonna reduce costs by a lot, or things that are gonna solve a big problem that is impacting the business to grow, right? And versus like doing something very well on a very small scope, right? So like I think like it is about trying to think about problems like on the macro level, not at the micro level, right? And in order to do that, you have to understand like what is the direction of the company, what like not only what is my current engineering team is suffering, but what is the whole engineering, the company or the startup suffering? What are the things that are impacting us the most, right? Because once you select the high leverage problems, then you start to work on like solutions for them. You're gonna have a much broader impact than just like focusing on like only whatever you're seeing at the moment, right? Um, what are like, and then what should be the first steps, right? I think like initially in your career in the first, I don't know, 5 years, I think your job is more to get fluent, to like to deliver things, right? To get used to the day to day. But I think like as you get more senior, you have to dedicate a part of your time to see things in the surroundings, to talk to people in other areas, to like to see what is going on in the industry and to try to bring those things there. So I think like the first step is like usually shape and deliver like on your current job role well, that you're gonna have time or that people are gonna give you the opportunities to explore bigger problems. Because if you're not, if you or your team is not able to like deliver on your current project, it's gonna be very hard for you to have sponsorship or to have the time to help other parts of the organization. So like make sure that whatever like scope org or whatever you have is doing well. And then the opportunities are gonna appear to start talk to other people. I think like there is a lot there. And I can send on the chat. I gave a talk last year on how to scale your impact as the IC, and I do have an article on that that goes into like the different ideas on how to scale, and that talks in a lot more details about what to do, how usually people grow, right?
That's great. If you have the link, we can and
Yes,
you can share here on the private chat, so I can share on the on the
yes. Let
session chat.
me.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah, I will send here in a second.
that would be great.
Yeah.
If you want to take it later, I can also
Yeah, yeah, I will send
share it
here
later.
in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah. Feel free to. I actually have to find what it is on. I have shared, and then I don't have the link handy. But yeah, give me 1 second, and I should already know where it is. Just need to.
While you search there, if you that is watching us, if you have any questions, you can put your question in the chat, and we bring here to Thiago.
I will also put here a. Chuck was mentioning about the graph and how to uh, create more impact. Just remember me about the engineering ladders. I see from I think it was from the book, but there's a site with a website on the GitHub with the engineering ladders. That's a radar chart with the 5 pillars of where you can grow. You can grow in the technology, in the system, in influence, in the process, and people. And I see a lot what Thiago mentioned about. First, you have to worry about delivering stuff very well, and then you start contributing, influencing other people, and understanding the system as a whole, not just a single part. So all of these are very connected with what I see here. I don't know if you got some inspiration from here. You contribute. You are on the. It was when you it was available when you are on your journey, when you are applying your leadership actions.
What? So what article or thing are you referring to, Hugo?
It is the engineering ladders. I Same kind
Oh,
of,
the engineering ladders. Yeah, I know this website. I
you
have
know?
seen this. Yes, is very good. I remember like coming across this, and definitely there was some inspiration on this, but I think like it's very hard for me to remember everything that I that I read, and I might got ideas from, because I got ideas and I try to like always be reading and applying things, but I remember this website. It's very good.
Cool, cool. Yeah, because when you said when you said some of your experience, kind of remind me very well the engineering ladder. I'll just share
That
quickly here
is,
just to
yeah.
give a view for the people. So I'm talking about this. Oh, I think I have to grow it, right? Let me see if I can. Oh, it doesn't grow. No, it's moving. So I remember, kind of remember this diagram here, and that was very interesting to see what you mentioned. Very connected with it.
Yes.
So, what one thing I was I think there was another well another comment from GeoDev, but it was when you mentioned about the being not being proactive. So so he answered the important thing is money and peace. Yeah, probably when people think about this way, they would have less chance to grow. Yeah,
Yes.
cool.
100%. Yeah. If you're just yes, sitting idle, just collecting the paycheck, right? I don't think that you're gonna grow much cultivating that mindset.
Cool. Um, well, I have tons of questions, but I will be polite here. Let me see if I can get one. So I think kind of personal challenge. Actually, it is to create this I don't know if it's proactivity, but it is leadership, a skills. I can say skills. Uh, what kind of actions or what kind of things have you worked to make it to actually to practice it to make to prepare people for leadership? I think that's a challenge for me as well, because I know a lot of people. There is a lot of developers actually are very in the very beginning. They would love to stay only developing and nothing else, and they would be
Yes.
very happy if that's if they can grow at that point. And yeah, but it's something, as you said, at some point you were gonna stuck, and yeah, you're gonna need to do something else. Most of the cases, I know there are exceptions, but yeah, how can you actually give this
Yes.
vision for people?
I think like yeah, that's very hard. Like how do you instigate someone to want to be a leader, right? Like how do you instigate them to go beyond coding, right? I think like that's like a lot of times that you might have heard this, that like sometimes you ask a very awesome engineer, oh, why did you become a manager? And the answer is like, oh, because like I wanna be the manager that I never had, right? I wanna be, because they felt so constrained that like their job and their peers' job was being impacted. They like, okay, nobody knows how to do the manager job. We're gonna do it, and because I know exactly what's needed for the engineering to work, right? So I think like part of that is like, okay, you can talk about career growth and money, and like of course, I mean there would be some financial rewards and some career titles, rewards that will come with taking the leadership role, right? But today, I think like with the dual track career ladder, where you can keep growing on both on the IC track and on the management track, there is less appeal of becoming a manager early on, right? Because it's like almost there is no ceiling for you to keep growing as I see. But I think like the problem is that if you don't develop your leadership skills, you're gonna get stuck even on the IC track. Because like in order to get to staff engineer, you need to be a leader. You know, you need to be as good as engineering manager to facilitate meetings, talk to people, because you need to influence, right? So how do you convince someone that is happy coding all day that they need to go and like be a leader? I think that's like is almost like
It, it,
you would rather do the opposite, right? Like is like you want people that are eager to do more and just don't know how to do it. Then is the whole skill versus will, right? There is this thing on the, or when you have a low performer, you ask like, is it a lack of skill or lack of will, right? Like like are they motivated to do the job, like, or they don't know how to do the job? And I think like for leadership is like the will has to be there because it's gonna be very painful, very demanding for you to go there. So it's like I can try to sell you on the financial rewards, on the career growth, on the impact, right? A lot of times like you want to do a big, you want to have a bigger impact, or maybe you want to be a startup founder, right? And if you're not good at leadership, you're not going to be able to build your business. Maybe you want to have financial independence someday. So like there are all those rational reasons, but then there is also the irrational side. That's like
Mhm.
sometimes people is like the what they call the leadership bug, right? Like it's like you feel good and you like you feel that you were born for this, you feel that you're having an impact, if you're helping people, if you're kind of like you're leaving things better than they were, and you feel that that's like, at least for me, that was like I felt that at some point I could be a forever six Java developer or seven max, but I would never be a 10 because I would look at the other engineers that I have seen, like they're much faster. They knew like they're much better than me in so many aspects. And there was a ceiling of like how long like I could like keep pushing there, but I quickly noticed that even though I was like a good enough like engineer, I was not the great one, right? I could feel that. But then when I got to the engineering management side, I was like, okay, here I feel that I can be a 8, a 9, or even a 10, right? Because I have these skills. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy processes. I enjoy like figuring out very ambiguous things, right? I enjoy like making sure that the right people are working together, right? Like all those things. So it's like for me, it was almost natural because I felt that there was my ceiling was on the impact that I could have, and naturally my peers would ask me, oh, can you facilitate this meeting, can you help me to interview this person, can you help us to structure the process for bug triage, and I was happy doing that. So that was like, oh, that is engineering management. It's a mix of a lot of things and to helping people. So I mean, it's internal, right? So it's like is very hard. But the last thing I'm gonna say is like, if you could, one thing you could do with that person that like is an engineer, is happy coding, and doesn't know if he wants to, he or she wants to go to the engineering leadership side, is put this person to work or to shadow a very good engineering manager to like, oh, you're gonna be for this week, you're gonna be like pairing with this and seeing how it is the day-to-day of engineering leader, and seeing if like seeing that high performance at scale will inspire you to be better, right? And then the other external rewards, money, like career growth, I think they're more secondary, because if you go for the leadership job just focusing on that, you're not gonna survive that long.
Yeah, yeah. I see. I see. So yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for the tips, Thiago. It was, and I was a bit curious about some. and that's a great option to make it work together with someone that can be an inspiration for him, so maybe he can start to see the path. I love this suggestion. um right now we have a couple of questions from Rodolfo as well on the chat, and he mentioned it here. I see one difficulty that senior engineers suffer from is to communicate results. Although we work a lot, there's that moment at performance conversation or interview in which we need to communicate our results. Our results, yeah, more than one button here. A result, and that's the hard part. Usually, we are focused on daily and tech problems. It's easy to communicate to our peers and direct manager, uh, but we struggle communicate to upper level managers because we got too technical and they want to understand the business impact. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, like, I think the part that you need to understand is like, how does your job impact the bottom line, right? Like, when they say the bottom line is like, how does the code that I'm deploying here today impacts either cost or revenue or like user experience, right? Because once you understand, or the productivity of other engineers, or like performance, right? Because you need almost a numerical figure, like for a lot of like, if you want to be very influential with executives or with like senior like leaders, you need to be talking numbers in somewhere or another, right? But I mean, it's also a myth that is only numbers. I don't think like, I think there is like a value of showing a demo of something, like of like but like I think like like when it's time for performance review, you need to build a narrative, right? And you need to find like connection. And if during most of the year you don't know like how what you're doing is impacting the customer or the cost, or it's going to be very hard at the time of the performance conversation for you to build a narrative over time. So it's like, it's almost that starts a year before on your expectations, that starts on like talking to people, that starts to like, there needs to be like a curiosity to like, okay, this project that we're working on, like, is not only a date, there is a reason. Like, why is the business or like the marketing, the sales asking for that feature, right? You need to be averse of like, okay, like, how does it impact the bottom line, and like, how can we make even more impactful, right? What are the things that are preventing the business to grow? And because like our job as technologists, as engineers, is basically to leverage the business to like to achieve its goals, right? So it's like technology per technology is not a business, right? Like, oh, we can do better programming language, we can, but it's like, if there is not a reason for doing that, like, it's not gonna go like very long. So I think like that's the thing that for the question that Rodolfo was asking, I think like you need to go like 2-3 steps before that. It's like, what's the goal of your team, what, like, how does the code bases, the service, the app, the front end, whatever you work on, how does that impact the cost, the revenue, the customer, like, and how can it impact even more? And then like, if you're able to, every time you set your like expectations, your goals, your team like OKRs for the year, you need to be connecting those things back. Then at the time of like performance review, you can connect it back. But then there is the other thing that's like, okay, it's not only about business results and numbers, it's also about your behaviors and like how like instrumental you were for like those projects to work, how easy you were to work with other people, right? It's not only delivering the project, it's how you deliver the project, right? It's like how you build trust with other people, how you left the like whatever code base in a better state, right? So I think it's like performance review is not only about results, it's about the constraints you're operating, is like how you improve things for the overall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was we are reaching here the actually our 1 hour of our session. I'm really enjoying this discussion. I would like to extend for 1 more hour, but yeah, but let's. I would like to ask if Luis and Chila, do you want to make any last questions so we can go to the end of the session?
Yeah, sure. So I have a question here. I don't know if Thiago can answer this in a short time, but maybe he can try. So in the last session, we talked about how good engineers sometimes fail code interviews, like code challenges
Mhm,
in interviews. How do you
mhm.
deal with that when you scale your team?
Yeah.
Since you
So I
have to
mean,
hire lots of engineers, you maybe
yeah, I mean
pass.
that's I mean ideally, your interview process should be designed according to your needs and I'm assuming that if you're doing like lead code interview or like whatever, like very hard coding interviews, you actually need them on the day to day because and like if people are not able to clear the bar or like to go beyond that and they're rejected, right? Is actually good for the organization because they're getting people that like were not good enough on the hard skills at that point in their career. But there's so many variables, right? And it's like almost interviewing is a game, right? It's like you need to like it's almost artificial gaming in a lot of companies. And sadly, right, a lot of very, very competent people get rejected on those first rounds and they never get to the end. But there is a philosophy that is like you would rather have like when it comes to interview and hiring, you would rather have was that false negative than false positives, right? Like I think like it's better to have to say no to the people that could have been like a talent than to say yes to people that we didn't clear the bar or like so it's always better to be on the safer side, right? And to very and even be more strict than what you really need. But I mean, it's a difference of philosophy. And I think like now with AI and like GPT and like a lot of people and like how amazing those tools are at solving like some of those basic problems we have been operating like and applying as an industry. It's like, is it relevant these days, right? Or why don't you let that person use a ChatGPT or whatever to solve and see like their ability to explain, the ability to adapt, the ability to research, right? And there are companies that do pair programming and like, yeah, feel free to use whatever you want. We are here just pairing with you. We want to see how you actually work. But there was a company that I worked for when I first moved to New York, Voxy, and our interview process was the person would come for a day of work. So he would come, join the stand up, like pair with people, would work on a real task. And then at the end of the day, we would see like how that person onboarded, how did he collaborate. And even if the person struggled on the task, we would consider all the things because that was closer to reality to what we needed at that time. Because we used to apply extreme programming to the extreme. We would pair 100% of the time, like all 40 hours of the week, and there were a lot of people that didn't want to have that, right? So seeing how that person reacts on a full day of like actual doing the job is the best scenario possible. But like I understand that not all companies can do that, and sometimes you're filtering out people that could be amazing, right? And like, and sometimes almost you have to study for the test, right? And if you know someone's going to be very good, you have to
Mhm.
they have to study for the test, they have to clear the bar, and is unfortunately, right, but I think is reality in a lot of companies. And it's very hard for engineering leader to go into, oh, I'm gonna completely remove the coding interview from my group, right? Like, it is a process that takes time.
Nice, awesome, thanks.
Yes, I also think it's a good opportunity if you can do it. Let the person work with you for 1 or 2 days, so that it's from both sides. So you get to know that person, their strengths, whether they are able to communicate with other people, they can work together, and also that person gets to know your company, whether it's something for him or for her. So it's both sides beneficial, but it's always this time constraint.
Yes, I mean, it is. And I mean, interviewing is a dual track, right? It's like, I mean, like, the candidate is interviewing you as much as you're interviewing the candidate, right? I think, like, and you should see things that way, right? And I think, like, at some point you should almost be interviewing the company, interviewing your hiring manager, right? And to see if they are the right for you. And usually we see that one-sided, right? Like, oh, someone wants to join the company, and we as a company, we can do whatever we want, and that person has to, like, be 100%. And but I think, like, the more senior you get, the more opportunities you have, the more experience you have, the more you actually interviewing companies more than they are interviewing you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, really, really, really good point of view. And I see Samuel just say hello. Hey, Samuel, good to see you here. And Rodolfo, maybe it's not. Oh, let me see. Maybe it's not a matter of completely removing coding tests, but introducing some flexibility. Yep, I think I
100% agree.
believe
100%
that's
agree.
you.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Yep. So, Thiago, for any leaders that would like to, that is facing some challenges on scaling their engineering teams, any last tip that you would like to share here? And if you have any social media, any place that people can follow you to get more content and about this topic and about you, would you like, if you can share here, it's a good time.
Yes, yes. So I'm usually in all kind of social media, but today I'm more active on LinkedIn and Twitter X. I'm not as active as they used to, but my handles are Thiago Ghisi in all, like, platforms. And, like, the final tip that I would leave, I think, like, it would say for leaders is, like, don't forget about yourself and your own career, right? Because I think it's easier for you to be only on the giving end, right? Like, only, like, oh, how do I improve my organization? How do I create opportunities for the people that work for me? How do I deliver those projects? And almost forgetting about yourself and your career, and both here, your health, your mental being, like, all those things, but also, like, your own growth as a leader, right? And so I would say to keep that in mind, because I think it's easier to just forget about yourself as you are in this very, very demanding roles, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that I would leave here. And I mean, there's so many things, and I will be sharing probably in the next week or so the recording of my talk. I don't know when InfoQ is gonna make that available. But I'm gonna be also sharing some of the tips that I gave on the talk as daily posts on LinkedIn. So you should see me more active there, trying to distill some of those ideas there. But yeah, there are many ideas, and I think a lot of things depend on your own context, on your own day to day, on your own constraints, right?
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I will take this tip for me for myself, and to keep the core. But yeah, so here that was Thiago Ghisi. Thanks a lot for being here with us. I
Thank you,
wish you,
folks.
yeah, I wish to give thanks for everyone that was watching us, and thanks Chila, thanks Luis. See you on the next session. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.